To introduce Frank Lorberbaum, who played a remarkable role in the history of Crossroads, and someone who probably most people who are new to the school do not know about, but a really interesting story because Frank was a general contractor who, in the summer of 1980, when the school was moving from Lindell to DeBaliviere, took what was a vacant supermarket, dry cleaners, and Walgreens and converted it into a first-class school. So, Frank, welcome, and thanks so much for being here with us.
Thank you. It's good to be here, Arthur.
So, Frank, this our audience are a lot of alumni and the new students at Crossroads, whatever. And I think one question that a lot of people may have before we even get into the specifics of Crossroads is what a general contractor does. Can you tell us about that?
A general contractor actually is responsible for building a project. They usually don't design it. They usually don't figure out what to build, but they usually get instructions from, it's usually an architect. It could be an owner. It could be anybody that it wants to do them, have him do it, but he follows their instructions. Now, in this case, as in a lot of cases, the architect is the one who, with the owner or the client, decides what gets done or what gets built. And then they put together what's referred to as a set of construction documents, which are drawings and written instructions as well of what they want done. So in this case, Tom Cohen was the architect, and he did the drawings under the supervision of Art and
Carol, yeah.
Explain what needed to be done.
Yeah, thank you. And Tom, who has had a lot of contact with the school, I hope we're able to catch up with him. But we just got word that we were going to be able to move into the building either late May or early June that we found out, and he put on a rush job to put together all the drawings and design. And then Frank, you took it from there with his help and with us. One other thing, just in general, the permit process. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, in order to do a construction project, you have to have a permit authorized by the government entity in charge, which in this case was the city of St. Louis. So we had to present our drawings, our construction documents to them for approval prior to starting.
Terrific, terrific. Okay, so I'm curious what you thought when you the first time you stepped into the building and you saw a wide open space that might have looked like a warehouse or something. What did you think, and what did you think of the task before you?
Well, I thought it was a big task. I was a lot younger then, obviously, and I had just started out in the construction business. I don't remember exactly how many years I've been doing it, but it was relatively, it's a big job for me at that time, and was a big stepping stone. I was able to show, once I did it, I was able to show my portfolio of work that I was able to do a commercial project like that. And it was a little overwhelming with the deadlines. I certainly had trust in Art and Tom to work as a team together to get it done as quickly as possible. So I was happy to help, and I certainly believe in the mission of Crossroads School as well. So it gave me a little further incentive.
That is good to know. That is good to know. So the building then and now had high ceilings. Was that a particular problem, or did it present an opportunity?
Well, being high ceilings gave me the opportunity to put a lot underneath it. We were able in some places to make two-story structures underneath the high ceiling. So and certainly it did, when we had to attach to it, it certainly prevented an obstacle that we had to have equipment to get up to it. But But overall, it was both. There were opportunities it provided as well as obstacles.
And one of the unique parts of the building that you did was the office area, 2 levels, which had not been the case in the building before, with a number of different rooms. It's even more complicated now, but what you did, I thought required a whole lot of attention to detail, and worked out beautifully. Do you remember that part of it?
Yeah, I do. I did very well. Because I remember, especially my employees, because as I said, we were just starting out, and I don't think I had done any entire new buildings from scratch yet. Mostly I was doing a lot of residential remodeling and additions. And after we built the structure, one of my employees said, now that we built a new building inside, do you think we could try one outside now?
Oh, that's great. And again, one of the challenges I think was bathrooms, because a supermarket had some, but just a couple. Was that particularly difficult for you finding? Yeah, I mean, the code required to have a certain number of bathrooms per, number of students and teachers. Was that a difficult part?
To a certain degree, the building is the structure, is a concrete slab on grade. So there was no basement there, there was no floor cavity. So you had to, wherever we put in plumbing pipes, we had to dig up or, cut through all the concrete, remove it and put in the drains and then put the concrete back. Yeah, so it was pretty much of an obstacle, but it's pretty typical. That's what happens when you do a remodel of a building like that, as you do usually have to, for plumbing reasons. Electric, you can get all overhead, and the heating and air, you can get all overhead. But plumbing relies on gravity to get rid of the waste and the water. So it's necessary to put it underneath the slab.
You mentioned the concrete slab, and it reminds me that prior to the building even being constructed, there was the Winter Garden skating rink there, an indoor ice skating rink. Um, in the course of your work, did you find any remnants of that?
No, we didn't. I would imagine, I'm not positive, but I would have thought that when they removed the old structure, they took out all the foundations and all the underground work that had been done.
Problem was, kind of as a concrete cube or whatever, that there were very few windows. You were able to put some in. Was that much of a challenge?
Well, somewhat. It's pretty typical in construction to have to do that. So it wasn't unique. It wasn't something out of the ordinary, but it takes a lot of more effort to make a hole in a wall and put a window in than if you were building it from scratch.
Right, got it. Okay. So since Carol and I left in 1989, the school has expanded, and they've done it using a lot of green measures to provide for energy and waste and so forth. I didn't have anything to do with it. Had I would have recommended that they go with you. But have you had a chance to see any of what they've done?
Yeah, it's been a few years since I've been over there, but I think about 2 or 3 years ago, I went through and saw the school, and it's wonderful. It's really happy to see how it's grown and prospered, and all the being able to so much better serve the community.
And you said that you like the philosophy of the school, and that gets me to a question that goes. It's broader than education, but it's been 44 years since we worked on that. Um, has the construction business changed much in that time?
Well, yeah, it's changed a great deal. I think the commercial projects are much more all union. Uh, there's so much more technology now available. to help organize a job and run a job. Next you have the software that's available now for construction. It's really made a big difference. So it's changed quite a bit, plus all the new technology as far as the actual construction itself, and new materials and more advanced materials, more green materials. Yeah, it's changed considerably.
And you talk about the unions. Has that been a major change since 1980? Are more of the workers union? I can't remember. Were you able to get workers who were not unionized?
We were mixed. We had some people that were union and some non-union. Sometimes that's a problem. The union people don't want to work next to a non-union person, but we didn't really have an issue with it. As far as unions, I think the unions were strong. Generally, I'm not an expert on this, but generally, I think unions are much stronger than they are now.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot less union participation than there used to be. But we never, we avoided a lot of the negative problems that unions had. Is that our people all got together, all worked together. There were no issues. Certainly, if I would have had, say, one plumber that was union and one plumber that was non-union on the job, that certainly might have been a conflict. But we didn't. We had one plumbing company, one carpentry company, one painting company on the entire job. And so that avoided a lot of the conflict.
That's great. And I mean, I think anybody can tell who's watching this interview, you've got really good human relations skills. And I would imagine that paid off in terms of dealing with workers, not only union or non-union, but exactly what's jurisdiction of a carpenter as opposed to a plumber, as opposed to electrician. And I would imagine that's a pretty difficult part of the job. Would that be correct?
Oh, yeah, it is. Like any job in management, getting along with the people you manage and working with them is a major issue. So yeah, it was a concern, but I really like working with plumbers and carpenters and electricians. I do all those things myself. Now that I'm retired, I'm on my house. I do all my own plumbing and carpentry and electric. So yeah,
That's great.
it's a problem, but we pushed through that pretty easily.
And then, to wrap this up, you and I, we were talking when we first connected after all these years, and so we've got some mileage behind us. And I think as I'm interviewing other people for this project, they may not share the same, be able to reflect the same way upon, how the world has changed, what's going on now. And I'm just wondering, would you have considered yourself in the 60s and 70s to be, an idealistic person who was, wanting to be part of societal change? And B, how do you think things have turned out to this point?
Well, yeah, I did consider myself part of the change that I'm hoping to be part of the change that was happening. And where we are today, I think the remains to be seen, especially today when the Supreme Court came out with the immunity issue. And it's very hard to tell where the United States is going, where America is going. So I think the jury's out on that. A few years ago, I wouldn't have guessed that we would be in this situation, but we are. So we'll see. We have to wait for that answer.
Got it. And Frank, is there anything else you'd want to say to maybe a lot of people who you haven't met yet, students at Crossroads, teachers, people who for many, many days a year live in the building that you made what it is now? And any thoughts you want to pass along?
Well, just I was really happy to have the opportunity and to make it happen, and did my best to do it, and we got it done. So I'm just happy that it's serving the community and serving a part of the community that's really needs a lot of service.